Recruiting looks vastly different today than it used to.
None of them are, running to each other and saying, hey, did you see that brochure in the community center? Whoa. As of 2023, we had a little over 250,000 applies last year alone. And there are 3 recruiters, including me.
Finding the perfect fit requires going beyond the resume. And for Vice President of Talent Acquisition, Sydney Ayers, it requires an intentional approach.
But, if you expect intentionality from the people that you're engaging with, you should put that out there too.
If you're looking for new ways to recruit or looking for tips to stand out as a candidate, this is the episode for you. Howdy, howdy. Welcome to the podcast, Sydney.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Brad.
Excellent. This your first podcast?
It is my first podcast. How did you know?
I honestly didn't know. I was just curious. A little nervous?
A little bit.
Nothing to be nervous about.
Cool.
So as we get kind of rolling into this, you've been with IST for a number of years, and of course you have a really important role in how we hire.
Sure.
So can you tell us about your team and their overall goal in being successful in this process?
Sure. So I've been with IST for just about a decade now. The recruiting team has taken on a lot of different forms over the past 10 years, but we've really hit our stride in the past few. Super lean and mean. I have 2 senior recruiters, one who's been here 10 years, one for 7, which is kind of unheard of in TA, so I'm very lucky to have them on my team, and a great admin assistant who joined us this year who really helps us keep everything going behind the scenes. Overall, we're really just committed to scaling IST, making sure that everyone we bring onto our team is, someone that can make a meaningful contribution and someone that we'd like to work with.
Awesome. Well, and what we're here to do today is truly talk about the lifeblood of a customer's focused organization, and that's its people. And that's your number one job. So can you give us a little background on how you started with IST and what your hiring history was? How did you become part of it?
Sure. So I got a cold message on LinkedIn from Darren McKee, who's not here anymore, but he worked for IST in a number of different roles. He's a LinkedIn influencer now. If you don't know, check him out.
I'm
Darren
aware.
McKee. But it was just a cold open. I had recently graduated early, so I was kind of quick onto the job market, trying to get in after that. I just done an internship for a nonprofit in Chicago where I was teaching job interview skills and job hunting skills to people coming off of long stints of incarceration. So I was kind of creeping into talent acquisition, but it was an entry-level role that Darren contacted me about. That was back in Chicago, and now it's been 10 years, and we're here in Atlanta.
Excellent. So what I love about that is, you came in through a cold email, or LinkedIn message.
Sure.
But I have to imagine that's not y'all's bread and butter for recruiting individuals, is it?
No, not broadly speaking. We have a huge field team at IST. We have about 1,800 employees nationwide, so a lot of our recruiting is for those frontline employees. Those are the most important, people, resources that we have are those employees. So a lot of it is fielding applicants that come to us. A lot of it is calling on folks directly, and we do cold message folks as well. It depends on what position we're going for, too.
Cool. So when you're broadcasting out and you're trying to find that person with a service background, with that servant's heart, how are you finding those individuals and realizing that they have the qualifications and the potential to be that person at IST that we're looking for?
So you're right about that. IST is a service provider. So every single person that we bring on board, they have to be invested. They have to care. So I think it is finding the right blend of, of course, skill set for the position. It depends on what the role is. But the type of person who can, extract happiness out of moments of their day when they make those contributions. So, maybe dropping off a copy job and you tape that client's or that customer's favorite piece of candy to it, big smile that day, put it in the bank. If you're someone who can thrive on those types of interactions, which I think most of our teammates are, then it's a place where you can have a lot of fun.
So how do you determine if someone can thrive in that? How do you know if they're the type of person that wants to go that extra mile?
Personal conversations. So everyone we're hiring is having that one-on-one, face-to-face interview with the person who will be their manager before they're hired. So just speaking face-to-face. A lot of it, you can't put a label on that. And I think a lot of it, you have to decide for yourself if you have a servant's heart and if that role is a fit for you. But really, just genuine communication between our hiring managers and our candidates.
Excellent. So obviously, in today's market, it's hard to find those applicants. It's hard for you to discern which ones fit that goal because there's so much noise out there. So how do you creatively create opportunities to be able to locate that talent with that servant's heart?
What do you mean by that, Brad?
Well, so I know you said, hey, we do we do a job post or we go into a person's message, but it's such a hard hiring market and people are moving so fast and you're trying to find that right person. So what creative things are you doing to get IST out there so people are seeing the jobs, seeing those opportunities?
Sure. Okay. Thank you. I understand now. So we partner with a lot of organizations and nonprofit, including the U.S. military, the Department of Defense. We are part of MSEP, which is the Military Spouse Employment Partnership. And coming up this February, we're going to be inducted into the Army Pays program as well, which is similar. But we get a lot of great candidates from those type of avenues. And we also partner with other local nonprofits to kind of get the job postings in front of an audience that they might not otherwise be. Specific job boards geared toward single moms or, different demographics. So really just making sure that it's exposed to the widest audience that we can get it to and intentionally engaging with organizations that help us connect with those communities.
Cool. So let's dive a little deeper into MILSAP, Pays, and
Sure.
why are you choosing those organizations and that avenue? What makes them special?
Sure. So it started with a recruiter who was formerly with IST, Hannah Wells. She's great. And she came to me and was like, did you know that military spouses are in their own depression demographically, not a recession, but they typically have 30% the unemployment rate of non-military spouses. And a lot of that is due to the lifestyle of military personnel moving and not being able to be in control of, where you are and when you are. So especially in the military community, and especially with military spouses, caregivers, anyone, kind of on the fringes there's a lot of really untapped talent. Especially we've seen with military spouses, people with degrees on degrees and all this different volunteer experience, and it's all over the board. And they're getting passed up a lot of the times because on paper, people aren't seeing past, why did you switch these jobs 3 times in however many years? But, because they had to, because they moved, it was out of their control. So it's a noble undertaking in the first place, anyone whose family is part of the military, but it's been a great partnership on both sides, people we've been able to bring on in that capacity.
So obviously I understand that if an individual comes from
MSEP,
sorry.
Sure.
MILSAP's old, right?
MilSpouse, Military Spouse Hiring Program. MSEP is the government agency that we're partnered with.
Got it.
GEMS is the acronym that Evan made up.
Right.
Yeah.
So obviously if an individual comes through one of these many acronyms, your field people that you're helping to support and stuff are used to taking a more broad approach to looking at that resume. How do you teach them to do the same thing on a resume coming from somewhere else? Because we don't know that individual's past and story and everything.
Sure. So when we made the GEMS program, we didn't just want it to be, how can we get these people to us? It's also, what can we do for these new hires then that they're not getting elsewhere that's making, this struggle for employment that we're seeing happen in the first place. So we created, worked with our HR department and created some standard operating procedures. People applying can self-identify, people onboarding can enroll themselves into GEMS, the Internal Military Spouse Program, and then that affects how they're able to take PTO, for example, in and around PCS moves. When their spouse has to move on short notice, they're able to take unpaid PTO or PTO after a resignation. My team will also help that individual to find a job if they are relocating, ideally with IST, but we do have it come
Right.
up where, you know, it's not an area where we have a site or it's not lining up, but we'll work with the other organizations that are part of that partnership with the Department of Defense to try to get that person connected to the local partners and vouch for them as well. And to the first part of your question was, you know, how do we train leadership
Yeah.
to, you know, look past things that are flagged, you know, arbitrarily?
Right.
And it's just having conversations. I mean, so when we hire operational leadership, they spend time virtually, at least, with me and my team, and we go over all of that, and we kind of coach them how, you know, okay, now what we've just explained all here to you, if we get you one of these people and they're great for the role, you need to communicate this to our client as well. And every time we've done that, it's had a really great reception from the customer as well. It's a cool program.
No, that's incredible. And it also just kind of sparked something else in my mind, which I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, and it's probably not on your sheet. I apologize.
okay.
But AI, it's obviously writing
Oh.
resumes. It's taking over. How are you currently working with AI, and how do you see it changing recruiting, hopefully for the best, in the future?
I might not be popular with my answer.
That's all good.
So
It's your answer.
I feel like there is a lot of hype, good and bad, on social media, especially LinkedIn, around AI and recruiting, and there's kind of this mystery slash, you know, implication that people are applying to jobs and putting all their hopes and dreams, and it's just going off to this big robot that stamps everything with a
Right.
no, or auto rejects people or anything like that. So we don't have that. We do use email templates, and we do have messaging that we like to stick to. But if you're getting a message from IST, no matter what system it's coming from, it was personally sent by either a recruiter or a hiring manager here.
Right.
So that's not to say that that will never change. This is in my notes, but as of 2023, we had a little over 250,000 applies last year alone. And there are 3 recruiters, including me. So we do use tools, and we're very lucky that our C-suite and HAL have allowed us to adopt tools that allow us to effectively screen folks and, you know, advance people based on qualifications for the position. But there's no auto reject. There's no, oh, I didn't have this word in my resume, so it
Right.
That's not happening. At
Great.
other places, maybe it is happening, and that's bad, but not
Right.
here.
But not here. No. That's great. You also use a product called HireVue.
We do.
Can you tell us about HireVue and why you think that helps to
Sure.
get
So,
people?
so HireVue is polarizing. We use HireVue in 2 different ways. The first one, which is not what I think you're talking about, is just for regular 2-way interviews. HireVue is a video interviewing platform that stores them, creates shareable links, has kind of a evaluator system on the back end. But we also use it for optional 1-way interviews, which I know a lot of people hate. But for certain roles like IT, where, you know, we're trusting you to be tech savvy and able to, you know, work with common applications, I think it's important to include that in the hiring process, and also including it as an option, not as a required step of the hiring process, but as an option for people who are applying as a way to stand out, has helped us get a lot of people who were passionate about the role that they applied for into that position.
I don't think I understand the 1-way interview.
So it is a person, I will record myself saying, hi, I'm Sydney Ayers, I'm blah, blah, blah. Please give me an intro of yourself and, you know, why you would like the network analyst position.
Okay.
And they record their answer, and then it sends back so the hiring manager can see that. So real life example, We're hiring IT right now. Jared has, I don't know, 20,000 applicants.
Right.
So yeah, 20,000 applicants, but 15 of them did the optional video screening. So even though he is going to go through and we're going to evaluate recruiting team and the hiring manager, who all is not a fit, who do we need to notify that they're not moving forward, who is a fit, we definitely know that the 15 people that did that video screening on the outset are a little bit more excited.
Right.
Yeah, and so we want to, get to those first. And this person went, took the time to sit down and record this without the hiring manager being present. They didn't have to, and they chose to. So that helps us a lot to find the person who really wants to be in that role too.
Well, I know I've used it personally with the marketing department, and for us, it helps us get beyond that resume and what we were kind of talking about before, where the person might not have that perfect resume, but when you get to see how they communicate and hear their answers
Totally.
to those questions, you start to feel that connection. You feel more comfortable and wanting to invest the time to bring them in for that physical interview or the video interview, whatever that next step.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it definitely helps to break down those barriers. And I know for a fact we've hired individuals that based off a resume alone we probably wouldn't have, but you just felt that connection in that hire view. So
Isn't that great?
yeah.
Yeah.
From a hiring manager perspective, it's incredible because we bring in less people, but we feel so much more comfortable that we're going to find that right person when we bring that individual in. And we've been able to retain them because we've been able to better establish that contact or that connection.
I do want to make clear, though, that it's not a replacement for that connection that you make right after that. And that's
Agreed.
why I said where I think this is polarizing, because a lot of it can be impersonal. And I think people sometimes, they don't want to participate in it or they get a bad feeling about it, which is totally understandable. But like you said, it's not a replacement.
No.
The actual connection and the conversations are what come from that. It's just, a nice option to have
Right.
under our belts and to offer to people if they really want to get their foot in the door.
Right. Well, Jose, who's in the room with us right now, he did a hire review, and we interviewed Chris and myself, I think, 4 different individuals during that time period, all from hire reviews that all had vastly different resumes.
Sure.
And if we had just picked one style of resume, I don't think we would have brought all of those 4 individuals in. I don't know if we would have brought Jose in.
You would have missed out. See?
Correct. And
Yeah.
Jose is an incredible employee that everyone loves and is amazing to work with because he brings that connection. He brings that skill set that we were able to see. Oh yeah, this guy's got that through that hire review interview, where I don't know if we would have got that just off his resume. He
Sure.
was fresh out of college. He had some internships while he was at college, and we had some resumes from people with a lot more experience,
Sure.
and were really, really impressive. And we interviewed him, but we brought him in because of that connection we made from there. So it allows that applicant that opportunity to truly, like you said, express themselves and start to build it. But it's not a replacement, 100%.
Totally.
If you can't just say, "Oh, I like this person," and send them a job offer.
No.
That's not the solution.
No.
I mean, at the end of the day, no matter where AI goes, hiring is about people. So you got to have people talking to people.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So when I started with IST, they tried a, we'll say, creative process for recruiting that one could say failed. I say it worked because I'm here. And what they did is they got a list of the 5,000 recent graduates from Georgia colleges. They sent out a flyer to all 5,000, and only one person responded to their 5,000. That would be me, obviously. And I mean, obviously, it's paid out. Whatever they paid for that hiring process has paid tenfold for them because it's been incredible for me. It's also been incredible for the company because it's been a win-win, and we've been able to give to each other. So all that to say is sometimes you got to try different things and creative things. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. What are some of the creative hiring processes you've tried that have worked and some that maybe haven't?
So you really have to meet people where they're at. And I know about the brochure and the flyers that you're talking about and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So if I'm trying to, I want to engage new talent, young grads, I am going to look into, where does that demographic go first for their job searching?
Right.
Or even where are they when they're online? I'm going to go to TikTok, I'm old, sorry, TikTok
too.
or Instagram, because none of them are, running to each other and saying, hey, did you see that brochure in the community center? Whoa,
Right.
That's just not the reality of it. So myself, in getting creative, I've tried to speak more directly to my audience with my social media posts when I'm kind of trying to get that engagement for a job.
Right.
So I think a lot of what we used to do in the past that has maybe not served us so well was, you constant big picture. But when I'm interviewing a candidate for, a position with this manager at this site doing this location, that's what we need to talk about. And how does their life fit into that? And what could they contribute to the organization in that position? Not,
Right.
What did we do last year and how many years we've been around? And these are all our accolades. If I'm an entry-level employee, maybe this is my first job even, I don't care about that. Why would I care about that? Eventually, I might grow to care about that. But I want to know, what would my day-to-day be like? And the way to reach those people is where they already are. They're not going to organically come to your website or to your door or, freak out over your flyer
Right.
that you stuck up somewhere. So reaching people and meeting them where they're at.
Excellent. So I'm curious. You said, they don't care about you did X in revenue, you got this many clients, you won that award. What do candidates care about in a company?
Day to day, what's my boss like? What opportunities for advancement do I have? How close is this for my commute? What is the parking fee? It's about the day-to-day experience, especially with someone who's maybe just kind of entering the corporate world. It's really about, how we can, bring them onto our team to the benefit of IST, but also how an opportunity with us would be to their benefit as well. And that's really the match that you want.
God, they're more savvy than I was. I literally just came in, interviewed. They said, you start on Monday at this address. And I said, okay. And showed up there. Well, I did drive it that weekend to make sure I knew how to get there from my house and everything. Yeah. But yeah, I just showed up. But no, that's great. So those are the things they care about. How do you make sure those hiring managers know how to relay that to them?
I beat them. No, I'm just kidding.
It's probably your best opportunity.
We have great tenure in our operations team at IST, and our hiring managers are pretty commonly our operations managers or our site managers, and a great deal of them have come up from entry-level positions at IST or in similar organizations where they've started, entry-level in, mail and copy position, and now they're over the whole operation. So they're able to interview these people from a place of tangible knowledge of what the role is like, and they can tell them, these are the best parts of working here, and these are the things that are going to be hard, and here's how I'll help you do that. Here's how I have helped the team do that, and here's how we can move forward from someone who has been in that position already. And even our operations managers or other hiring managers that haven't come in from similar positions, we drive it home with them. This person is making a life decision. And so are you as the hiring manager. I mean, you're talking to that person a lot after that. So mutually beneficial, and something, like I said, that it's just going to be a great fit on both sides.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, like you said, it's a big decision on both people's, and it affects everyone's life in that room. I know what's always worked well for me, or at least I assume that's one of the things that helped these people join my team that are in the room with us, is just being transparent.
Absolutely. And we're that way in our interview processes too. especially on my team as well. We'll tell people straight, these are the expectations. This is what, even before someone gets to the hiring manager, this is what working with so-and-so is like. He likes this type of communication style. And just kind of trying our best. Every person that person encounters in the interview process should try to set them up for success in the next conversation in that process. And if someone's not doing that, then I think that would be something that needs to be addressed. That would be an organizational failure. We should all be on the same team, and with our potential future teammates, we should extend that during the recruiting and hiring process.
Absolutely. Typos help too.
Sure.
I had put together a job listing and wanted to say, hey, we have free snacks. And instead I said, we have free snakes. And the person literally applied because they wanted to ask me about the free snakes, and they still work here. So they haven't got their snake yet.
I was going to say, you might be contractually obligated to give them
We
some
joke
snakes.
about it often. I feel like I should, but I don't think they actually want the snake.
Okay,
but
fair
they were
enough then.
just curious what these free snakes were about. So, maybe that's your next creative way in. Mm-hmm. You're like, yeah, he's an idiot. So for those in the hiring process, what are the 3 best things you recommend they could do for likelihood to get an interview?
From a candidate standpoint?
Yeah.
So it's really about being intentional with it. I know that Indeed and other job boards make it super easy to apply for 100 jobs in a day. And while I understand that for some people, that might be a necessity at that time, or, there is wisdom in casting a wide net as well. Once you really hone in on an opportunity that you want, you should be ready for that first conversation. I think it's common advice also to, try to reach out, connect directly to that hiring manager. Definitely do that, but be sure you've, read through the full text of whatever was up front. If it says fill out an application, do that. If it says, hey, these are the options for applying, follow them before you reach out to that hiring manager. I think a common mistake that candidates can make, and again, I'm not saying that I don't understand how this can happen, and I talk about this with my recruiting team all the time. Whatever the stresses of hiring and recruiting are pale in comparison to the stresses of job searching. It sucks. We can't change that. We can't sugarcoat that. But, if you expect intentionality from the people that you're engaging with, you should put that out there too. So, the difference between a hiring manager picking up the phone from someone who says, hey, I saw your job posting. I have this qualification and I would love this job because X, Y, and Z, versus, a person calling the hiring manager and saying, well, I don't remember, I applied for a lot of jobs yesterday. What job is this, or what company is this? So if it's a role that you really want, be intentional and be specific with that one, and be specific in your, communications throughout that process. Do your homework.
Yeah, I absolutely agree on to do your homework. I'm a little curious about connecting with the hiring manager. What does that mean?
Sure. So depending on where a job is posted or where
Okay.
you're seeing that information, a lot of times there will be contact information for the hiring manager directly listed on there. A lot of my postings on LinkedIn link my profile to it, so they can, fully send me a message. Hey, I just applied for this. Cool. It makes them stand out. Same thing with hiring managers. On emails that they might send out to applicants, or cold touches, they're including their name, usually an email address, phone number. You can reply to that person and say, hey, I just submitted my resume for this. If there's anything else I can ask, blah, blah, blah. You can go to more detail about why you might be a fit for that role. I will add a caveat to this too, though, because I do see a lot of advice online. If you've applied for the position, email everyone on the executive team or email the CEO. Be intentional.
Right.
Who would I be reporting to? Who's making the hiring decision here? Is this a meaningful communication that's going to help me, get to where I want to be, not just a blast and I hope that some good returns come back to
Right.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, to me it seems like a fine line of, like you said, being intentional, being thoughtful, and not being a stalker either.
A little bit of stalking can be
Right.
okay. I mean, you want to stick around, but yeah, you want to make sure that you're reaching the right people, and sending meaningful communications when you're doing that, not just an email with that says, "Hey, did you see my application?" with no other copy on there. How,
Right.
How can that person respond to you meaningfully then?
And I think we've dabbled a little bit already on this just from talking about this a little bit more, but what are some of those things they shouldn't do if they want to get an interview?
So most of what I touched on already, be intentional. Don't not be intentional.
Right. Yeah, not that
yeah.
blast of 100
Yeah.
jobs.
You have to, like anything in life, you get what you give. So if you are going to, I'm going to go after these 10 opportunities, I'm going to research them, and I'm going to reach out to the hiring managers. I would say you have better chance of that than I'm going to do 100 one-click applies on Indeed. I'm not going to send any messages, or I'm going to send the same message to everyone. It's about returns. So be intentional about what you're going for, who you're communicating with. And also, if you'll give me 1 second, don't burn bridges. A lot of times we will see people that have applied for a couple positions on our site, which is great, especially, if they're in the same location. And let's say, they're not qualified for this one, but they are for this one. And they get an email for the first position from the hiring manager that says, hey, we can't move forward. You don't have experience in X and X. And then they reply back, F you, or an obscene picture. And I totally get why. Like I said, job seeking sucks, especially if you're in a position where you're unemployed. There are a lot of stressors that everyone deals with, but you never know if you were, the second one in line. So you want to keep that bridge. You want to keep the relationships with anyone that you meet during those interview processes along the way. Even if you aren't a fit for their role, if you can make an impression on them, they're more likely when another role comes up to say, oh, hey, do you remember, Brad, who we interviewed? They weren't good for marketing, but they'd be great for HR, and they have an opening now. Can we go back to that guy? So be intentional, be professional. I know that's super surfacey, but think about the person on the other end of the interaction and what would be best for you to have said to that person, even though I know it's hard. I know it's very hard for people who are out there job seeking.
That's absolutely so true. Amy Godwin, who is our producer of the podcast, interviewed for 2 other positions before she landed in marketing. And the first place she interviewed, they said, oh my God, she's great. She's just not a fit for here. And then she interviewed with HR and they went, oh my God, she's great. She's not a fit for here. And when we had an opening, they said, you've got to interview her. And she was great and she fit. And it's been a blast ever since. So you're right. Being open, not burning that bridge, understanding that this company feels right. I just got to wait and find that right opportunity there.
Sure.
So important. Awesome. I just one last question for you. So the favorite thing about my job is being part of the creative process and seeing creativity flourish and grow. And I'm just curious about how you keep that creative fire in recruiting and everything.
So I think it is easy to keep, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easy to keep kind of that recruiting fire or that energy up in recruiting because we are constantly having conversations with people from all walks of life. I learn so much about so many strangers every single day that I come to work. And then it's kind of, a puzzle to piece that all together at the end of the day. And there's logistics and behind it and, HR laws and employment practices that we have to follow. But being able to use all the different resources that we have and put them together in a specific way for a specific hire, to have, an end result like we have with Amy here,
right,
where we were able to piece it together. And that wasn't just through the resources we have or just through so-and-so. It was a combination of utilizing all those resources and our working relationships with each other interdepartmentally, being at IST and knowing, all having an understanding of what do we need this person to bring to the table and what are we going to, improve upon their life and where does this person align. So every hire is different. Every candidate is different. It's a person at the end of the day. So being able to take all the different components and mix them together to get the right output, I think is probably where we're most creative in recruiting. And making sure that we're able to best present our candidates to hiring managers. Like you said, sometimes resumes don't reflect a person's true background. But we'll help our candidates. Hey, you need to add that you have Adobe and whatever else on here. You need to, beef this up. So I think just that, intentionality again. I keep going back to it, but focusing on how can I get this individual into this role and why would that work well, not just throwing stuff at a wall and hope it sticks.
That was so beautiful, and I love how you talked about it's taking a million different things and not looking for that silver bullet and being open to where the process takes you, because you're here because you answered a direct message in LinkedIn that you could have easily ignored. I'm here because I answered a random flyer in a mailbox because I was graduated from college and my mom said I couldn't get married if I didn't have a job, so
There you go.
funny thing. So yeah, it's a different fit for everybody, and it's being that willingness you have to try all the different things and be creative and see, well, we can try it this way to get this specific person, but this job, it's got different uniqueness, and so we're going to have to try something different.
Yep.
Love it.
Cool.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sydney. This has been such fun.
Thanks, Brad. This was really fun. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to our production team, Lance Gardner, Amy Godwin, Lacey Pepe, Jose Ruiz Velasco, and Eric Willis. To learn more about ISC Management Solutions and how they can benefit your business, check out iscmanagement.com and follow us on LinkedIn. To hear more Outside In, subscribe on your preferred listening platform.